Today, on Transfiguration Sunday, we begin a new message series called Game Changer. It's actually the perfect day to begin this series because throughout the series we will be looking at how Jesus exercised his authority and how it was so different from the leaders of his day and ours too. We're going to see how Jesus does not use his power to hold us down, but to reach down to us. And today's gospel and readings introduce us to this. But before we unpack the gospel, let's take a look at the first reading, which is meant to provide some Old Testament context to the gospel today. We read, "To him was given dominion and glory and kingship, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that shall not pass away, and his kingship is one that shall never be destroyed." Friends, this is a verse taken from the book of Daniel, an Old Testament prophet, describing a vision he had of the Messiah, someone who is like the Son of Man. Now, the title Son of Man is used some 88 times in the New Testament to refer to Jesus. The Jews at the time of Jesus, listening to him preach and calling himself the Son of Man, would have instantly recognized it as a reference to this passage in Daniel. So when Jesus used this phrase, he was assigning the Son of Man prophecy to himself. He's saying, "I'm the Son of Man. I'm the Messiah." Yet at the same time, this phrase also means that Jesus is truly a human being. A son of a man is also a man. So yes, Jesus is the Son of God. He was, in essence, God himself. And yet Jesus is also the Son of Man. So he is, in essence, a human being. And as such, he has great authority. In fact, he has the ultimate authority. But not everyone believed in his divine level of authority because, after all, he was a human being. We can read of several accounts in the Gospels where some people outright demanded to know where Jesus got his authority. Check this out. When he entered the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to him as he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?" See, they, like many others at the time, basically wanted to know who the heck Jesus thought he was. And I think that more often than we'd probably like to admit it, we ask Jesus the exact same question. If you've been coming to our church for a while, you may have heard me stand up here and say that we should strive to put Jesus first in our life, that we have to make him our number one priority or give him full control over our lives. But give Jesus full control? Why? After all, this is my life, and it's all about me. Me, 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 me. Who does Jesus think that he is, demanding that I give everything to him? Who the heck does he think he is? This is the dialogue, friends, that I think happens within us, whether we're aware of it or not, every time we sin. You see, sin is when we remove God from the throne of our hearts and put ourselves there instead. Ultimately, every sin is an act of pride, where we deny Jesus as God. We think we're better. And we know just from looking around us that the effects of sin do nothing more than leave us brokenhearted and confused. And still, like the chief priests and the skeptics, we find ourselves demanding that Jesus prove himself to us before we pledge our allegiance to him. But we see that Jesus never actually gives these people the satisfaction of an answer. In fact, only 3 of his disciples, who never asked for such a blessing, receive the answer to this question. And this is what happens in our gospel today. Today's gospel, the Transfiguration account, is a glimpse into heaven, into the real power and position that Jesus has. We read, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. And his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. You see, these three apostles see a new side of Jesus here. His appearance is amazingly, dazzlingly bright. He is talking casually with two of the biggest heroes of the Old Testament, these two giant pillars, Moses and Elijah. You see, they're used to Jesus as the Son of Man, but now they're seeing Jesus as the Son of God. They're seeing this. And Peter is the first to speak up and acknowledge just how privileged they are. Look at what Peter says to Jesus. Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 dwelling places, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Peter recognizes that others have wanted to see the glory of God, but that he is one of the privileged few who actually gets to experience it. Peter is so excited that he tries to convince Jesus to just let them camp out there. Like, this moment can last forever. Like, let's just hang tight. Let's not go anywhere. He wants to hold on to this moment. But before he even gets all the words out, we read this. While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud a voice said, "This is my Son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." The voice of God the Father actually cuts Peter off. I love it. Peter's just talking away, and God cuts him right off. And this is a powerful reminder to Peter that Jesus' glory has been shown to them on his terms, not on theirs. A reminder that Peter should not try in even the smallest way to control the situation, or to change it, or even to prolong it. Why? Well, because Jesus has all the authority. Not some of it, or a lot of it, or even 99% of it. All of it. Jesus has complete and total authority, veto power, and the final say. And why? Because God said so. This is the answer to the question that the chief priests have been asking, and Peter seems to get the message. I'm actually kind of surprised he does. If our second reading is any indication, St. Peter writes, "For Jesus received honor and glory from God the Father, when that voice was conveyed to him by the majestic glory. So we have the prophetic message more fully confirmed. You will do well to be attentive to this, as to a lamp shining in a dark place, until the day dawns and the morning star rises in your hearts." Daniel's prophetic message of the Son of God receiving power and authority is confirmed here. And we see in the Transfiguration that Jesus receives his authority from his Father, from God in heaven. Now Peter is telling us to pay attention. This is God himself conferring all authority to his Son. If that isn't a high enough power for you, then I don't know what else to tell you. Yet so often, we refuse to heed to this authority. Through the selfishness of sin, we turn our back on our King and try to make ourselves our own gods. And because we're human, we will often use power in all the wrong ways, for all the wrong reasons. Why? Because it's all about me, myself, and I. I mean, just look at the news. The world seems like it's one big power struggle after another, with chaotic and devastating consequences in the long run. When we separate power from godliness, we begin to lord our power over each other. But the way Jesus uses his authority is very different from the ways that we assert power. The ways in which Jesus displays his power is a game changer. And we see this displayed again in today's gospel. After that voice of God booms from the clouds, we read, when the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up and do not be afraid." And when they looked up and saw no one except Jesus himself alone. You see, what does he do? He reaches out and he touches them. His first priority after receiving confirmation of his authority from his Father in heaven under terrifyingly miraculous circumstances is to go to his disciples. He goes to them and he touches them. He touches them gently. He encourages them. He loves them. And when they look back up at him, they see that all the majestic light and glory is gone. All of it's gone. Jesus had made himself so approachable and accessible again, when he could have just stayed right there, towering over them, glowing in a very intimidating sort of way. But even with all of his power, his preference is to come to us one-on-one. You see, he is Lord, but he will never lord his power over us. Instead, he shares himself with us. This very truth is most evident in the mystery that is the Eucharist. God, who is meant to be enthroned on our hearts as King, this same God makes himself a little piece of bread. Think about it, right? God becomes a wafer. God allows us to eat him. God lets himself get stuck in our teeth. Why on earth would he allow something this crazy, this humiliating, this shocking, when he has unlimited power? It's because he has unlimited love. When the apostles saw the unlimited power of Jesus in the transfiguration, they fell to their face. They were scared. Like they were really scared. But Jesus came to die for our sins. He came so that we could have a share in his glory, not so that he could lord his power or authority over us. He doesn't do that. And so despite the way in which great power was bestowed on him, he reaches out to touch us, to draw us close to him, to be totally united with us. That's what he desires, to be totally united with us. Friends, in a very few short moments, on this altar, the King will arrive. You probably won't be able to see him in all of his glory. Probably all you will see is a little wafer and some wine. But this is the mind-boggling thing about our God. He wants us to see his love, and because of that, to receive his power. He wants to be the king, not of the whole universe. He's already got that. But he wants to be the king of your heart. He wants to live and conquer and dwell right here. That's what he wants more than anything. And even though he has all of this authority, He never forces that on us. We have to take the first step. Instead, he comes to us quietly, forsaking all the power for the ones he loves. And that's you and me. So today, when you come up to receive communion, I would love it for you to see both infinite power and infinite love all mixed together in a crazy and incredible way. I would love for you today to pledge your allegiance to this King who longs for his dominion to be over our hearts just as much as it already is over the world. I would love for you today to pledge your allegiance to this King. Regardless of what's going on in your life, regardless of the struggles that you're going through or how unworthy you think you are, how you don't have your stuff together, none of that matters. If you are able to today, I would love it for you to pledge your allegiance to this King. Here I am. Come and be my King. Be the King of my heart. And if you don't think you're ready to do that today, that's okay. Ask for the grace to be able to do that. Ask for the strength to be able to turn to Jesus, because we need him. And the one thing he desires more than anything, believe me, is to dwell right here. May God bless you all.